Hi, Ron LeGrand here. Before we get started with the podcast, I thought you might want to know that I recently recorded a 90-minute online training about how we make so much money today in the terms business. That's on pretty houses in pretty neighborhoods, not the junk houses that we have to go rehab or wholesale. I go through step by step on exactly what I and thousands of my students are doing right now to make the fastest and the easiest money in real estate without using your money or credit. If you're interested in doing just that, go to thementorpodcast.com/free training. See you there.
Welcome to the Mentor Podcast, where the most highly motivated entrepreneurs come to get their weekly dose of financial stability with host Ron LeGrand, as well as other nationally recognized thought leaders who will teach you how to get, grow, and protect your wealth.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of thementorpodcast.com. And I have, back by popular demand, Mr. Al Nicoletti, who is an attorney who actually specializes in probate. And today we're not going to go back and do what we already done. You can go back and get that podcast, look it up, just look for Al's name, Nicoletti. And today he's got some updates and he's got some stories to tell us about some real examples and some issues and how to fix the issues, right, Al?
You got it, Ron. Ron, thanks so much for having me on again. Loved being on the last time. It's crazy. It was like 2 years ago.
Really?
We get those Facebook memories that pop up in the feed. And then I saw our video come up 2 years ago. And it's crazy how much has changed just since then, since the pandemic hit.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we start by telling everybody what probate is and how it works, and then we can get into these updates.
You got it. So I'll do a little intro. We'll get into the what is. My name's Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, crushing it in the Florida probate market and all the weird and different stuff. I'll find all my stuff on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Got tons of videos out there, and you got to go back and check out the Ron LeGrand podcast with Al Nicoletti about 2 years ago. Ron, what is probate? And it's fascinating. I've had, all this information, all these slides. I know you and I have talked about all the info and everything. And it's funny because this one slide has been on my PowerPoint 3 years. And I always talk about what is probate. And a lot of people go, okay, we know what it is. We got it. Move on. The yawn slide. But Ron, it wasn't until about a month ago when a story came all about what is probate. And it was a deal breaker that went to a deal maker. So what is it? Somebody owned the property. It's in their name. Okay. They die. And in order to take what that person had and transfer it to the heirs, whether it's through a will or no will, or maybe the will's leaving it to a trust, to transfer it, there's a court process. We file paperwork in court. We get it through. We wait for the judge to sign that takes the title and moves it over to the heirs. That's it. Now they can sell it. They can refinance it. They can convey it. You can then buy the property, get title insurance to the property. That's it. And it's amazing, Ron, because I've told that to so many people and it glosses them, right? They gloss right over it. But what happens is, Ron, you find a seller and they ask you, Ron, they're like, well, Mr. LeGrand, we would love to sign your contract. We would love to go under contract with you. But can you please tell us what probate is? Because everybody has been just saying sign, sign, sign. And that's what a lady told me when she called me. She said, Mr. Nicoletti, if you can tell me what probate is, I'll sign your probate documents and I will move forward with the investor's contract. I said, you're asking me what probate is? No problem. Explained it very simply, 10 seconds, moving what they had, transferred it over. She couldn't believe that was the explanation. And she signed my probate documents. She signed the contract, moved forward with the deal. So the what is really simple, Ron.
All right. So basically what you just said to me was all it is a process that has to go through the court to notify anybody who have any claim on the estate to come forward now or forever hold your peace. And when that process is over, the judge stamps it and says, now the new owners own the property based on whoever they are in the chain of family relationship, I guess. And once that's done, now the title is cleared up. and the title is transferred.
It's interesting because we brought that up last time. What's interesting about all the probate stuff, though, is we know who the heirs are.
Right.
Rarely do we have a situation. That's why we'll dive into the stories about missing heirs, uncooperative heirs. Many transactions, Ron, we know who the heirs are because we're asking questions. So there's nobody to notify. We're just trying to get waivers and consent forms from the heirs. And if they don't want to sign the probate documents, let's just say there's 5 of them and they all sign your contract, Ron, but they don't want to even get into the probate part. And I got one person. Sure. We'll send out notices, notify them that, hey, you have an inheritance, you're going to get your share. And then they don't respond. We wrap it up. But rarely does that happen. We usually get everybody on board, ready to move forward with the deal.
Well, and you're very, very fast at it, I might add. But you only operate in Florida, right?
I'm only in Florida. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, Al, when is the best time to try to notify sellers of properties? Is it right after the owner dies, or several months later when the process is over, or do I contact the attorney, or what?
So I think that's a great question because that's a lot of people ask that. You have all these lead lists, right? Pre-probate, probate, and inheritance leads. And the question is, when do you hit it? When's the right timing? A lot of people will say you don't hit it right away. You don't hit it within 2 weeks of date of death. Maybe that sweet spot is all trial by error. It's maybe like 3 months, 4 months. There's enough time. Sometimes though, Ron, you'd be so surprised. Many of these probate leads, these heirs have been holding on to that property, paying the taxes or just holding on to it, maybe sharing the tax payments, and they hold on to it for years.
Yeah.
Years. And they're tired of getting the letters, or they're tired of making the payments. I have one lady, Ron, I asked her, I said, when did mom pass? And she was like 1980s. I said, okay, so you want to sell the property? She said, yeah. And I said, but wait a second, have you been paying the taxes this long? She said, yes, since 1986. 1986. So you want to talk about motivated? There you go. So,
well, but that property wouldn't be a probate property anymore. All right. So,
it would. Oh yeah, there was no adverse possession for that. She can get her money back for the tax payment, but there still has to be a probate to transfer out the interest.
So she didn't even own the property.
No.
Oh, okay. Actually, she didn't go through probate.
Not yet.
All right. Okay. Well, let's get to some of these problems that you see and some of these stories that you want to tell me today. Because probate is a great way to find deals, and not very many people are actually taking advantage of it because they don't know when to contact them. And you didn't answer that question, incidentally. When do I contact and who do I contact?
What do you mean for the attorney part?
Yeah. When is the best time to contact the owner or the future owner in a probate deal?
I think you got to try to reach out to whoever you can right away. Like, I mean, if you're trying to target a lead, when's the best time after death? I think that depends on, that's trial and error, but you want to get in touch with the heirs as soon as you can to try to see, what the situation is, what the story is.
Well, how do I know who the heirs are?
You ask the questions and you find out, and then you get them in touch with an attorney. You're saying, hey, I'm not the lawyer on this. I don't know who we're maybe really looking for and who's everybody in this deal. Here, you go reach out to the probate attorney, and the probate attorney will break down the steps of who really are the heirs based on what's going on, will or no will.
Well, then you're telling me that I don't have a probate attorney right after they die. So do I contact the probate attorney, Al? Is that who I'm trying to contact? Because that is a matter of public record.
Well, let's just say so I think in my world, what we're finding, Ron, is a lot of the properties have never gone through probate. So totally different, right? Yeah. Pre-probate, no probate has ever happened on the property. It's never gone through the court process. It's still sitting in the deceased person's name. Yeah. In those cases, you're trying to find at least one person, one main contact to talk to, right? The other ones that you're thinking of are the ones that already are filed in the courthouse, already a public record, that are in the probate process. You have 2 options for those. One, you reach out to, actually 3. One, you reach out to the heirs or heir. 2, if there's a personal representative there, you can reach out to them. Or three, not the greatest option, but you can reach out to the lawyer. The only thing is that the lawyer has no decision making on what's going on. They're just facilitating moving the probate. So two different things. Because in my world, Ron, I'm seeing all the ones where there's never been a probate opened yet. So everybody's like, how do you tackle those? How do you dive deep in those situations?
Yeah. Okay. All right. I got you. All right. Tell me about these issues you want to discuss.
Oh, Ron, since 2 years ago, let me tell you, I think during the pandemic, there was 150 probates in 2021. I did 90 probates in 2020. So I saw a ton since the last time we spoke. And I made a list. And we'll go through the big ones. And some are probates and some are weirder title things. But I want to talk about these because I want your students and all your listeners out there to know that a lot of times you may come across the deal, this complicated deal, and feel defeated. But when you hear these stories, I want you to think opportunity. I do not want you to think sipping from the fire hydrant and this is a lot and complicated. They get complicated, but that's where the juicy deals are. And Ron will tell you all day, the complicated ones could be the fat spreads, the big margins, right? So the first one, Ron, had an investor find a piece of property. There were 6 heirs on this, totally dilapidated, distressed. I think they found it from a code violation list. And it was a totally distressed property, 6 heirs. He calls me and says, Al, I found a probate lead. We're ready to do this. 5 of the heirs signed my real estate contract. I said, okay. He said, the 6th one, we can't get to sign. We've hit the remind button on DocuSign. We've tried bringing it to them. We can't get them to sign. I said, okay, see what happens in a week and let me know. Let me talk to the seller, the one of the heirs, and get her take on it. So I have a consult. I talked to her. Not a whole lot of information other than there's 6 heirs. Mom lived there. Perfect. I'm sitting on a Saturday, Ron. I'm looking through my notes. And on my notes, one of the things it said something about homestead, non-homestead. There was like nothing there talking about it. And I'm like, that's weird. I usually like put something there for that. So maybe it was a question. So I called her back on Monday and I said, I have a question for you. Was this where Mom lived and resided? She goes, well, Mom used to live there and she left and went to go live with my brother. And I said, really? And that matters, Ron. That matters. I said, so Mom never wanted to go back to that property. She said, oh no, she was not going back, not happening. And why does that matter, Ron? Because in Florida, they have homestead. And if it's the primary residence of that person, the title moves to all of the heirs, meaning you would need all 6. We're not talking about partition right now, but you would need all 6 to be in agreement to get the deal done. So I said, you're telling me it was not Mom's homestead. Oh, no, it's not. My sister would sign an affidavit, my other sister. I said, perfect. I said, I want you to go tell your brother that he's going to get his money from the sale of the property, but we have a way to get around him if he's not going to sign the DocuSign contract, and we'll see it. We'll see you later. She said, really? Go for it. So she picks up the phone. She calls the brother, says exactly that. Next day at 9 a.m., ding, DocuSign signed, all 6 on the contract. And that was creative because we had a way, Ron, where we were going to be able to get a motion approved with a CMA, get everything in there that shows the value of that property, serve the brother with all 5 of the others on board, and find a way to get that sale of the property approved. And you know what? He knew it. He knew we were going to get around him. And you know what? They're closing on that property this week. So I call that one checkmate.
So how could you get around him though, Al?
So one of the ways you can is because it wasn't a primary residence, it goes into the estate. So what we would have done is appoint one of the sisters to be the personal representative. In other states, they call it the executor. Get everybody on board, right? Get a contract from the investor with the personal representative. Also get a repair list, a CMA that shows that the CMA and the contract price are fair market, right? So it's even at that point. And then we serve the brother. We would serve him with the motion and we serve him with everything. And if he doesn't respond, okay. If he does respond, where's he going to find a higher value? Probably not. And he was out of luck at that point. So he didn't want to mess around with it. He didn't want to get into it. The point is that he thought he was going to hold up the deal, but he didn't realize that that the sisters had somebody with a creative solution mindset that was going to fix that whole deal. So he signed.
Okay.
But how many of your students would say, I don't even know what to do in that point?
Right. Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure I would know what to do either. To be honest with you, I guess the other sisters could have brought some kind of legal action to try to force him to sign, but I'm not sure on what grounds they would have a case. You would know that better than me.
They could have done a partition lawsuit at some point, but it was a lot easier to deal with it in the probate than it would be to do a probate and a partition. But the idea is we found a way around him. So that's why I called it checkmate, because we put him in a position that he really had no choice. It was either going to go one way or the other. He wasn't going to hold up the sale. He just didn't want them to sell the property. It was crazy.
I think you just made a case to my listeners to make sure that they don't have to go through this, and that if there's 5 or 6 heirs, that somebody, this thing probably needs to go into a trust where somebody is in control of the trust. So actually, it eliminates probate, put you out of business. But that's no concern of ours. You'll find someplace else to get lunch.
Thanks, Ron.
All right. So tell me about the next one.
Okay. So the next one was crazy, and it ended at the end of the year. So investor finds a piece of property about to go to a tax deed auction. And you notice I'm explaining where the opportunities are in these things, right? It's not just a lead. It's, these are distressed situations. Tax deed auction is coming up. So property's been sitting there for 2 years before the auction. We look at the property appraiser. Don't rely on the property appraiser, but just looked at it, and there were no deeds. But the last transaction we saw was like 1940. And so I was like, and there was one name on the property appraiser. So I said, something seems weird here. You're telling me one person's owned it since 1940? I don't know about that. So I told the investors, I said, before we do anything, pull the title to that property, and let's see what the title work comes back and says. And you see what I'm doing here, Ron? I'm giving like a manual, like a script of what's next to do. So the investors pull the title work and comes back and says, 8 people on the title to the property, not just 1, 8. So I said, perfect. Now we know what's going on. Okay. Are all 8 people alive? No. Okay. How many are dead? 6. Okay. That's 6 probates. Like, are we going to get into 6 probates? Possibly. Well, what about the other 2? Oh, they're alive. They're around. They can be found. Okay. So I get in touch with them. They end up being like the distant relatives of some of these people. And we come to find out, Ron, that some of these people died from 1950, 1970, 1990, 2010, 2019. You're talking about 6 people, multiple death certificates, very complicated situation, right? Nobody had any of the death certificates. Pulling a death certificate from 1950, that's when we had to get private investigators involved, people that were specialists and knew what they were doing. So we had to get them retained, them to pull the death certificates. And Ron, we had to do a whole tree down. And the heirs, one of the spouses for the heirs called me one day and said, we've brought this file to 4 different title attorneys. And all of them initially said they can do it. And then all of a sudden they couldn't figure it out. And they were like, there's no way you're going to be able to figure this out. And if you do, great. But we don't see how. Ron, 6 probates filing it in 6 months. We got all 6 of them done. The investor paid off the tax deed auction for $10,000 and made a net profit of $200,000 on that one deal. Commercial property, the commercial land steal deal. And the moral of the story is, so many investors would have passed off on that due to the complicated part about it. But when you think about it, look at the spread. Yeah. We went from complicated, but the spread was massive. So these could be huge opportunities that people may pass on. And they're commercial. I mean, look at that commercial. you know you're going to find a developer that's going to be willing to pay on commercial land.
Yeah. But you know what? I doubt anybody understands what you just said. But the whole point is very simple. The more screwed up the title, the more I'm attracted to the property because of guys like you that know how to fix these title problems. In fact, there's a lot of money in fixing title problems. And there's plenty of ways to get around depending on the situation. In that case, it was going to a tax deed sale. I think the first thing I'd have done is try to buy the tax certificate from the guys or whoever owned it. Yeah, because all they're going to get out of the sale is the tax certificate and the interest that is accrued on its cents, right? In other words, maybe I run it through the tax deed sale because I'll tell you here in Florida, if I run a property through the tax deed sale and it sells for a lot more, I get the difference as the owner of the property. Anyway, there's plenty of creative ways to get around these things if you have a creative mind like yours in the loop, figuring out solutions. All right. So what else? You got another?
Oh yeah. I got plenty more for you, Ron. You told me when, but another one that came up, and we learn a lot each time we see these deals.
Mm-hmm.
On one of my PowerPoints on my presentation, I talk about what you're looking for when you get into probates, right? What are the basic things that you got to make sure of, basic steps. And one of them is the foreclosure tax deed auction. Basically what we just talked about, knowing when is an auction coming. So imagine, Ron, you pick up a great deal, fantastic deal. All heirs want to sign your contract, ready to go. You bring it to the probate attorney, but all of a sudden the property just went up for auction and you just missed out on the whole deal. And that's actually what happened on one deal, because what happens is you got to know what's happening and get with your title company. On this, it was crazy. Nobody knew, not even the title company. So I call this the tale of two wives. It's the ultimate red herring case. So guy dies. He dies and he has a wife, and the investors approach the wife and she's like, oh, I don't know if I want to do anything with this property. So they start doing some more digging. They find like 2 kids somewhere. And when they did more digging, they found out there was somebody else that knew of another wife outside of Florida. So they reached out to her and they got the whole scoop. Come to find out, he was married to this lady we'll call the lady in the north, the lady in the north. He was still married to her. He left her, married this other lady in Florida, never got divorced, was not separated technically. And all of a sudden he dies. Marriage certificate in Florida, still married in the north. So the investor comes to me and goes, well, Al, who's the real wife? Who do we have to get? And we did a lot of research on it, finding out that the lady in the north really was the wife. The one that was married here in Florida was the illegal wife. So we're going through all the stories. We're going through all the hypotheticals. And we get in touch with that lady. She's ready to move forward. There's 2 kids. They know about what's going on. So we have to get around figuring out this whole scenario with this other illegal wife. We get all the paperwork together. We file everything. We send it to the judge. Judge signs the order. Boom, done. Ron got the court order, right? And this is where the red herring comes in. So we're all worried about the bouncing ball with the tale of 2 wives and which wife it was. Meanwhile, the lady in the north all of a sudden starts calling everybody and says, hey, there's a tax deed auction collection company that keeps calling me. They want to know if we can get the surplus. We're like, wait a second. What do you mean surplus? We just got the court order. We needed to sell the property. Oh yeah, they keep calling another company. Come to find out, all these collections on the surplus kept calling her, asking if they wanted to sign up with her so she can get the money. What happened was, during that whole time, nobody picked up on this, not even the title company. There was a HOA foreclosure auction that already happened. And there was $120,000 surplus sitting in the court registry.
Wow.
So the whole time, so it goes back to basics, right, Ron? I talk about it, tackling and sacks, like in football. Go to the basics. knowing what's coming up auction wise so important, because a lot of people focus on the complicated nature of things, but meanwhile we all forgot about the auctions, or the title company didn't pick up about the auction, and the whole thing got sold, and now we're dealing with trying to get the surplus. So it was a crazy story about how title didn't pick that up, and everybody was worried about the tale of two wives. It was crazy.
Yeah. So as it all turns out, it didn't matter. It went through foreclosure, which cleaned up the title. And so I guess basically all the work you did was for nothing, right?
Oh, right. And that's where I was like, are you kidding? Like, we just did all that. I worked my magic. I did all my procedures. I did everything, only to find out that, the people that we were depending on to find out about that HOA just didn't know. It was crazy.
Well, I don't understand how, if you ran title, that they didn't pick that up, because it went through foreclosure. It's a matter of public record.
That's what I'd like to still know as well, is that how does a Liz Pendens not come up on a proper title report? And that's what a lot of us were still questioning about, because we didn't know on our end. Nobody explained it on my end that there was an auction or anything like that. And then the title company never picked it up. Investor didn't pick it up. But because of this story, Ron, I'm always cognizant of, like, are we sure there's no auction? Are we sure there's nothing coming up? We're not pressed against time. There's no sensitive time things. And fortunately, they're trying to work on getting the surplus, but that's been, crazy as well.
All right. So nobody bought title insurance, I assume. You just had a title search done?
Yeah, I think they only got a title commitment done on that property. That was it.
But they didn't buy a policy?
No, they didn't. I mean, they didn't close on it yet.
That's too bad.
Well, yeah.
One time when a title policy would have come in real handy. Yeah.
But they were trying to wait for the probate to be done, and we got the order. But by the time we got the order, the auction happened, and that's when everything broke loose.
All right. Well, golly, that was a mess. All right. Okay.
But opportunity.
Well, I know that you could go on for hours here, but we don't have hours because our time is up here. So you got any closing tips for our folks who might want to pursue probate, other than to get a good probate attorney, which in your case would be you for anybody in Florida? It makes no difference where they live in Florida, right?
Right.
Okay. What do you want our listeners to know today?
So final tip. So
something brilliant out of you, Al. Something brilliant.
Oh, well, if you want a final crazy tip, which is there was a deal an investor found, and there were 3 people on title, 2 were dead. He couldn't get the cooperation of any of the heirs from the other 2 estates. So we found one of the guys that was alive, and he bought that guy out for $800 on this one property. And it ended up being a snag deal because the property went up for auction for $32,000. And it took a lot of understanding about what those opportunities are. But the brilliant side to this stuff is you got to get creative with some of these deals that come up with crazy deed situations, wild deeds, missing heirs, uncooperative heirs. There are solutions to these deals. It's a matter of how much it's going to be. But ultimately, these things are there. I mean, you got to get creative with it, Ron. So all of this stuff is possible.
You're not going to get creative if you don't know what that means. What you need to do is tap into a creative mind for sure. And that actually means a good closing attorney, or someone who has been around a while, who understands how to fix these problems. Because like I said, I love title problems because nobody else will fix them. And there's always a fix. Have you ever run across a time where there wasn't a fix? Somehow this property's got to pass on to somebody else. Of course, sometimes it involves a court action, but there's always a fix one way or the other. Some of them aren't pleasant though, but anyway, good information now.
Thank you, Ron.
Being around today. I think we're going to have to continue this into the future.
Yeah. Just so you know, Ron, just so you know, I had made a whole list. I had a whole list of different stories for you there, because it's amazing how many people would pass up on these deals when they didn't realize there could be a way to do these and make good money from it.
Yeah, so don't never pass up on a deal with a title problem until you get some good quality advice. Keyword is quality advice. All right.
There you go.
I got a situation here right now where we got a student who's working with my mentor, and they got a deal, and we got a contract, and the attorney won't do a wraparound mortgage. Get out of here. That's not a real estate closing attorney if they don't do a wrapper. And in fact, they told her she should take it subject to. Oh my God, this attorney should not be doing what he's doing. And I think you'll agree. Just because they're attorney doesn't mean they know squat about what you want them. No attorney knows everything about everything.
Oh, right.
But a good real estate closing attorney will be able to help you on what to do on cleaning up these title problems. Create big deals for you that other people would just cave in on, and probably already have before you even got there. All right, Al, I got to go. We're out of time, man. I'll talk to you next time. Thank you, sir, for your input.
Ron, thank you so much.
What if somebody wants to contact you? How do they reach you?
Best way, 904-999-0053. Leave a voicemail. And Al at alnicoletti.com, www.alnicoletti.com. Check out Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify.
All right. Spell Nicoletti.
Nicoletti.
In other words, you're not going to be hard to find.
Well,
okay.
And it's funny because Ron, you're the one that says Nicoletti, and you're the only one I let say Nicoletti.
Oh, so it's not Nicoletti?
No, Nicoletti.
Well, then I got the spelling wrong on it even. Oh crap! Who cares? You're out of me.
You got it.
Okay, sir. See you next time.
Thanks. Take care.
One more thing before we go. If you guys want to learn how to buy and sell houses without using your money or credit, go to ronlegrand.com/terms, and you'll go to an hour, 15-minute seminar on what thousands of my people are doing in order to get properties under contract so you can take them to guys like Al.
That's all for this edition of the Mentor Podcast. To connect with Ron and learn how you can attain financial freedom, as well as up-to-date strategies to grow and protect your wealth based on today's discussion, go to www.connectwiththementor.com.